So we have Sharon Wimbush here. You are a long time associate of R. Kelly and his camp. Recently, you have been kind of making I wouldn't say like a press run, but you've been bringing awareness to some flaws that you believe are happening in his case. We do have some receipts here that we're going to view in just a second. But you were his nutritionist, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. If you don't mind filling in where I'm kind of missing just a bit of a, background, just so people can really put their finger on it, and we can go ahead and just jump right into it. If I'm missing
Okay. I
anything.
met Robert. Yeah, I met Robert in early '97. He hired me to work in his home with him and his wife and his newborn daughter, Joanne, at the time.
Okay.
So I was responsible for making sure that they ate healthy. At the time, Robert was wanting to get his physique in order for videos and cut his body up, so to speak. And Drea was trying to lose baby fat after having Joanne.
Okay.
So my duties were to make sure that healthy food was plentiful for Robert, her, the dancers in the studio, on the tour bus, and just making sure they had everything that they needed to be healthy
Oh, wow.
during that time. So I worked with him in his home. I've been in the studio. I've been on the tour bus. I've been all throughout every aspect of his life. So I've seen how he moves. I've seen how he lives. So that's why I got involved in this, because I know the things that I was hearing were not
Hmm.
who he is.
Okay.
For instance, I knew the reason he had females wear baggy clothes is because Robert always has meetings in his home. He always conducts meetings with 15, 20 people from the time he wakes up to the time he goes to sleep. There was always traffic in his home, always meetings, and he would have people in different sections of the house meeting with this group of people in the living room, this group of people in the bar area, this group of people near the kitchen, this group of people. He would spread them out throughout the house because they would have various meetings. And he did not want the men looking at the females in tight, skimpy outfits. So he did have them wear baggy clothes. There was a rule that you had to knock before entering a room because he's having sensitive meetings. He doesn't want you overhearing contract negotiations for an album or who he's going to be working with next. He would tell Drea to take the baby upstairs and go in the room when people came by, because at that time, no one knew that he was married and no one was supposed to know. And her room was equivalent to a suite at the Four Seasons Hotel. It had a bathroom in it. It had a small refrigerator that I made sure was fully stocked with food. And there are times when he would have meetings and he would ask me to leave because I remember one time specifically, he said, when you finish up, leave because I got somebody real big coming by the house. And I certainly wanted to ask him who, but I didn't dare because it was unprofessional. So I know that his rules exist, but there's a logical explanation for why.
Mm, mm. Okay. So let's start with Drea, because Drea had a very interesting account of her relationship with R. Kelly, and she did make some rather um, uh, I guess graphic statements online about the things that he made her do. Walk on all fours. She had to ask when to eat, but being that you are the nutritionist and you were responsible for their food daily, did Rob have to ever give you permission to make food for Drea?
Rob was never around like that. Um, Drea ate whenever she wanted. She was always there with other dancers. And when I tell you Robert was not around 95% of the time, that's why these stories don't add up. Stop and think about it. When did he have time to write music, tour, design videos, and do all the things that he did if he was monitoring food intake and bathroom breaks? It just doesn't make sense and it doesn't add up. The refrigerator was always fully stocked. I made sure the refrigerator in her room was stocked. I never saw any deprivation whatsoever in terms of food.
So, what did you think about her remarks when she came out and she was a part of Surviving R. Kelly, as well as doing various interviews to talk about the abuse that she had suffered at the hands of R. Kelly? I mean, I thought it was pretty interesting because 2 years prior, she was tweeting, even after they were divorced, "That's my baby daddy," and all this stuff, and she was praising him. And then it just like the switch flipped. So, what did you think about her
Well,
remarks?
yeah, that's what made me come forward. When I didn't see Surviving R. Kelly, I started getting phone calls from people who
Hmm.
knew that I worked for Robert, and they were asking me, "Is this true? Is this true?" And none of it did I see. So I began listening to her interviews, trying to figure out what the heck was going on. And the first question I asked myself was, what laws did Robert break? What brought this on? And the only person that I knew was Drea. I knew Rashana, but she wasn't in it. And I have met Sparkle before. But in terms of visibility for the show, I knew the show was being driven by the wife. And so I paid very close attention to her. And what I found was there was a lot she wasn't saying. There was a lot that she left out. She didn't say that she always slept in her room with other dancers. She did not say that her and Robert slept in separate bedrooms. She did not say that she was complicit with all the things that he was doing. She had a fiance when she met him, and she was having sex with him and other dancers on the tour bus.
Like women,
So
like
she,
women or men, both.
women to my knowledge.
Okay.
I don't know of any men. So, and from what I understand, the first sex tape that was found, Carrie got it. It was laying around some house that Rob rented, and it was Dree on the sex tape with Rob. Now, of course, she's an adult, but the things that she was doing sexually, she did to get him and to keep him. So I couldn't understand, if you're going to tell the story, tell the whole story. And she made it seem as if she was this victim, but Robert never had her name on anything. I always felt like it was an arranged marriage, because one day I came in and she was looking through the photo album, and she showed me the pictures of the day that they got married. Both of them were in casual clothes. Rob was in a Nautica sweatsuit. She was in casual clothes. I think she told me they got married in Denver, Colorado, I believe, February of '96. And it looked as if they just pulled the tour bus over to the side of the road, hopped out, went into City Hall, exchanged vows, and then got back on the tour bus. It did not seem like it was anything magical, or, they were in love or anything like that. And so I knew, just based on how they were existing, that the relationship was doomed.
Mm. Now, when Rob slept in separate rooms, who was sleeping with him?
He was always by himself, to my knowledge.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Now, when I interviewed Kerry Kelly, the brother of R. Kelly, he spoke of this tape that you're referencing. However, he did say that what he witnessed on the tape was two white girls that Rob had met in the mall, that were between the ages of 13 and 15. Did you actually see the tape, or was it something that you just kind of, I guess, heard, or just kind of,
No, Demetrius Smith told me about it, and he specifically said it was Drea on the tape. And you can't identify somebody's age from a tape. So Carrie, I think, was being salacious and just trying to get press, and trying to make money off of damaging his brother.
Okay. I know he has since changed his tune. We met up in Chicago in February of this year, and he now wants to rally for his brother. He wants to help get his brother out of jail. And so I have yet to bring him back on the show for him to explain what made him so drastically change his mind. He did look.
Well, he and I can tell you why.
Why?
When Bruce got out, Bruce was going out to his house, and they were spending a lot of time together.
And we're talking about
And
Bruce
Bruce
Kelly,
and
the
I,
third brother, right?
the oldest brother, correct.
Okay. Okay.
Uh, Bruce and I began talking immediately when he got out, and he would tell me about the conversations that he and Carrie were having, and neither one of them really wanted to get involved just yet. But I had strong conversations with both of them, And Carrie and I specifically talked for hours. And what I said to Carrie was what Carrie was doing was harboring a lot of ill feelings about what Rob didn't do for him and what he felt Rob didn't do for the mother. And I simply asked him, what did you ever do for Robert? And if he didn't do those things for your mother, why didn't you do them? How do you get to dictate to him how he spends his money? And specifically, it was about the grave and him feeling that Robert didn't get a headstone. And I said, in all these years, you've made enough money that you could have gotten a headstone. But we talked about many issues, hours and hours and hours of conversation. And I think because I kept putting the responsibility back on him, he felt like Robert prevented him from having success. And I let him know that nobody can stop you from doing anything if you're really talented. Um, and I also said that he did damage to his own reputation. When you come out and you speak against your family, specifically your brother, who's a huge artist, the world sees you as a snitch. And no one in the industry is going to deal with you because everybody has stuff in their closet. Everybody has secrets that they don't want out. And if you will snitch on your brother, you'll snitch on everybody. So the minute people see you as a snitch, they're not going to deal with you. And once I said that to him, he really got it. He understood that.
Okay. Thanks for now, real quick, Miss Sharon, there's a strong echo on your end. Like when I talk, it feels like my voice is going back and coming back. So it's kind of interfering with my conversation with you. Is there like another microphone on that you have?
I don't hear it on my end.
Yeah, I hear it. So what happens is when someone has on an extra microphone, like I was live the other night, and someone had on like they had their phone and then they had a microphone beside it, and both the phone and the microphone was recording. So as a result, I'll get a playback of my voice. Give me a second. Let me
Microphone on, but hold on. Let me.
okay. See, I didn't
Yes,
hear it that
I
time.
have you
It's
on.
gone. It's gone.
Well, I have you on speakerphone, but I don't.
That's probably what it is. So when the voice comes out, it comes back. But it's okay.
Okay.
It's
Can
gone
you hear me?
now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's a little bit of playback, but it's not as bad as it was um a second ago. Okay, so that's very interesting that you were able to just change his mind like that. You would think with all of the press online revolving him or surrounding him, he would have already had a change of heart, you know. But you know, when a brother comes out and he speaks about their sister molesting them when they were kids and things like that, and that's how and he feels that's what kind of led Rob down this path of sexual destruction. You know, it's you know, it kind of wakes you up like, wow, if the family's talking, then it must be really serious, you know. Now, Demetrius, back to him, the tour manager, the road manager. Me and him have had conversations, and I
I
found
think
what
that's on your end.
I'm sorry.
The video was stalling. I didn't hear what
Oh,
you said.
okay. What was the last thing you heard?
Something about the sister, and he felt like that's why Rob did something.
Yes, Carrie had explained to me during an interview and off camera that he felt like it was the sister that kind of opened Pandora's box and led Rob down a path of sexual destruction.
Well, he introduced to sex inappropriately. He's admitted that, but he lives a rock star lifestyle. Most people in a rock star lifestyle have been introduced to sex inappropriately. The moniker for the music business is sex, drugs, rock and roll.
Right.
And if you stop and think about it, he's watching porn, he's singing about sex, he's got to perform at a very intense level. All of his songs are sexual. So you're creating this very strong momentum around lust and sex. So of course he's going to be over sexual and do more sexual activity than the average person because that's what he based his career on. It is probably that he was messed with at an early age, but it is also that he's in an industry where there's just an abundance of people coming at him from all directions, and his music is very sexual. So you combine all of that, and you're going to have someone that is very active as he is.
Okay. Let's take it back a little bit. Now it is echoing again because of the speakerphone. Let's talk about Aaliyah. Hold on real quick for me.
Okay.
Because it's really echoing to the point where it's busting the speakers a little bit. Hey, I need you to come downstairs. There's an issue with the sound.
Okay.
All right. Listen, I know that life has been kicking all of our ass lately, but we don't have to look like it. Walking around with dark circles like I used to, acne, hyperpigmentation, you can knock all of that out. Adjust your crown and return your skin to goddess status with the Regal Rose Club. Purchase their vegan skincare cleanser, moisturizer, and mask using the link below. It's made with all organic and premium natural herbs. Get your glow back with Regal Rose Club. Let's put the wine down for a second, because at times like this, we need to take a shot of the olive leaf extract, because the olive leaf boosts our immune system and has been known to reverse high blood pressure, lupus, diabetes, and certain cancers. Check them out at myoliveleaf.biz to learn more and to order, or simply click the link below in the description box. Now back to the wine. Listen here, Juvia's Place understood the assignment. They have everything you need to create the perfect face in one place. Take your fine ass over to juviasplace.com or your local Ulta Beauty store and check out all of their luxury products that won't break the bank. Juvia's Place prides itself on presenting you with only the finest formulas and most pigmented shades. Take your look to the next level with unique eyeshadows, full coverage foundations, bold lip colors, and much, much more. Using my code WINE. Get you 10% off your online order. All right, let's take it back. Starting with Aaliyah, because the trial has brought her up. We've been following it day by day on what's going on in that courtroom, and it's pretty heated. They're charging him with racketeering and the Mann Act, two very hard charges to beat, because you're pretty much guilty by association. But they've decided to bring up Aaliyah to show that Rob has had a past of dating women that were underage. What are your thoughts on that? Because I know you probably weren't around when Aaliyah was around, but he did marry Aaliyah allegedly the same way, getting the tour manager, Demetrius, to obtain a marriage license and take her off to get married. So I know you had mentioned that was how him and Drea got married, and it didn't, I guess, read through the pictures as true love. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, let's talk law, because when you speak on the Aaliyah case, she is Jane Doe number one, and Demetrius is the witness for that. He's already taken the stand, and
Right.
what he said, which is in the transcripts, Robert had nothing to do with him getting the ID. What was also stated that is in the transcripts, that Daryl McDavid and Barry Hankerson are the ones that gave Demetrius his instructions. He never took instruction from Robert because he was older than Robert. So he felt like he was a big brother and uncle, a manager, or someone in a position of authority. So Demetrius would have never followed instructions by Robert. And there's plenty of evidence to support that. Robert is not on trial for sex or marriage. He's on trial for bribery of an official. And it
Right.
has been proven that Demetrius is the one that did that, and he did that without Robert's knowledge, consent, or suggestion. In terms of whether he had sex with Aaliyah, whether she was pregnant, whether there was a marriage, the government official that came in to talk only talked about the legalities of getting married. She could not substantiate one way or the other about the license because she was not the person that did that. That's in the transcripts. Aaliyah is deceased. She's not here to say whether the relationship was sexual or not, and Robert has never spoke on it. In terms of a pregnancy, everybody said there was no pregnancy. So in legal terminology, Jane Doe number one is a moot point. That means it has no legal standing. The charge was bribery of a government official, and it's been proven that Demetrius did that without Robert's knowledge or consent.
Okay. Well, let's talk about Jane Doe number 2, who I believe is Sparkle's niece, correct?
No, she's not in New York. She's not in the New York case.
Okay. Well,
I know they've had Geronda on, and they've had Azriel.
Azriel, which Azriel has already been discredited. Geronda, we're going to be speaking with her sister soon, because she's on the internet blasting Geronda for allegedly lying about her age and
well, did you also hear that Azriel lied to the police about her age? Her mother lied to the police about her age. They both lied to Robert. That's in the transcripts of the court proceeding.
Okay.
Under oath, Azriel stated she got the phone number. Her mother had the number, and her mother was texting Robert and pretending to be her. Robert asked her in the text message, "How old are you?" Her mother said, "I'm 18.
Wow.
Then Azriel, for whatever reason, she couldn't reach Rob, so she went to her mother's phone and found out, however long later, that her mother was in fact texting her for Azriel. Then Azriel finally did talk to him. She went to meet him at the hotel. He asked her again, "How old are you?" She said 18. They got in the room. The police officer knocked on the door. And I don't know, somehow they said it was a setup by the parents. They wanted to find her in a compromised position with him so that they could get paid. But the police officer knocked on the door, asked Mr. Kelly, to speak to whoever his guest was. He asked the police officer asked her her age, asked her for ID. She called her mother. The police officer spoke to the mother, and the mother said she is grown. She can do what she wants to do. All of that is in the court transcripts. So Azriel not only pursued Mr. Kelly, her parents took her to the concert. You have to be 18 by Ticketmaster's terms and agreement to purchase a ticket. You had to be a mature audience based on Funk Fest terms and conditions to enter that event. And then she lied to him multiple times and lied to the police. So all of that is part of our record.
Okay. And I got a lot of catching up to do as well, because I'm trying to follow this trial as well as keep up with what's going on now in the news. However, tonight I will review all of that, and I will add some commentary to the interview that we're doing. And so as you're cooking for Rob, see, because a lot of stuff that we've discussed here on the channel, and I'm gonna be honest with you, my sources were the parents. Okay. And I've since, of course, exposed the savages. They're nowhere to be found during this trial at all. I kind of shut them down because there was a tape that I put out that stated that, Tim, he keep the daughter. I don't care. I'm just going to go off and make my billions. And it's like, do you want your daughter or do you want money? And now that all of this is coming out about Azriel and, her parents, and that's something that came to the light after she came home, that it wasn't supposed to go the way that it went. It was supposed to go how the parents wanted it to go, which was a forced contract into developing Azriel. And Azriel was allegedly the pawn. Now, a lot of it has come out because I've had sources come forward and state that they've seen him, at the Marriott, and all of the girls, Azriel, Joycelyn, whoever else was with him, were all dressed in sweatsuits and told to leave, put their heads down. They weren't allowed to make eye contact or anything like that. Now, I do understand him living a rock star life, but do you feel that some of his ways that you saw early on could have gotten a little bit more drastic and harsh?
Well, here's what we know. Every person that has testified has proven themselves to be a liar. You can get someone's testimony off of social media and corroborate the story. And what we have shown is everybody's here to get paid. So, unfortunately, these are not reliable people. If the rules were harsh, they had every opportunity to leave. Azriel had many opportunities to go home. Her parents were begging her to come home. They were calling her, telling her to come home. She didn't want to leave. So, whatever his rules were, everyone wanted to deal with his rules because they wanted to deal with him. I don't know what they were because I was not there. But at any point, as Anthony Navarro said in his testimony, and that's in the transcript, no one was being held against their will. No one was forced to stay there. At any point, they could have left. So if you didn't like what he was doing, is giving her $5,000 a month. He was, she said on the stand that what he wanted was things to go back the way they were when he was taking her to Red Lobster, spending $500 on a meal. So it couldn't have been that bad because she didn't want to leave. Even when he was taken into custody July 11th, 2019, she didn't run to her parents. She didn't run to the police. She continued to stay. So it's inconsistent that it was so bad that you don't want to leave. And she said in the documentary Precedents, if I left, someone would replace me. And the producer asked her, well, why didn't you go home? She said, I didn't want to go back to that. Meaning whatever she was living in Kissimmee, Florida was worse than what she was dealing with. And she has said to her father sitting in his face, I'm enjoying myself in this penthouse suite, living this lifestyle, and she didn't want to work. We have video footage of her at the concert enjoying herself. All of that is inconsistent with I'm being abused, tortured, and I hate being here. 5 years? 5 years you didn't want to go home? I mean, at some point you passed a police officer and you could have yelled help. They didn't. They negotiated with themselves. They wanted to live that lifestyle and they didn't want to work for it. It is what it is. Now they want to complain because they didn't get, it's just like the father said, she came in the door with nothing and she left with nothing. That's what they're angry at, that they didn't come up on him the way they wanted to.
Okay. Let's talk about Geronda and her testimony, because I think I was probably one of the first to really kind of, open things up when it came to Geronda and the specifics. Now, I do know that Geronda did lie about her age. That's something that she was very upfront about, and that she was a super fan of Rob. And first of all, Geronda looks young. Even when you see her now, she looks young and like a baby. And so you would naturally think Rob would say, you know what, I'm not going to go there. But
Right.
for her to save a shirt that had his DNA on it after she did collect a check for many years after it was settled for the abuse and things like that, it was strange that he would even allow himself to be in that situation, given what happened with Rashonda, or I think that's her name, Sparkle Snakes. What are your thoughts on that?
Those are things that Rob has to work out within himself. And I agree with that. And I've said to him, you shouldn't have even been that close to the line. But in his mind, he is a sex fiend. He does have a sex addiction. There's no question about that.
And
And
I've
he
said that,
doesn't just have sex with one type. This man has sex with all ages, this is just what you're seeing. If he had a problem with that age, we should see 500 16, 17-year-old girls lined up around that courthouse. We see 4 or 5. One is deceased, and the majority of them are saying they lied about their age. They had fake ID. We have not heard from Sparkle's niece yet, so we will reserve judgment on that until we hear from her. But everyone else has been discredited. Robert enjoys sex. He enjoys sex with multiple people. of all ages. I have not seen where he discriminates. It's just that older women, women in the industry, women that have something to lose are not going to put their business in the street. Don't
Mm,
hear from them. You're
mm.
hearing from people who want to make money on this. So they are running to the press. They are talking. They are writing books. What they didn't do was go to the police, go to therapy, or go to um, some type of self-help treatment. We don't see that. And I put this on him too. I mean, me too. They have paraded these females in the public as victims and have demanded that the public refer to them as victims. And nobody had an open case in court. Nobody had evidence and nobody had been to the police. So him too, in my opinion, has been committing terrorism in this country, making people refer to these people as victims. And if you question anybody, you're victim shaming. They have railroaded this situation, and I think they've done a grave injustice to men and the women's movement. Then you had Mute R. Kelly that broke the law when they violated his Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights. You don't have a right to cut off somebody's money based on gossip, rumor, and innuendo. They didn't have an open case in court. Nobody went to the police. Nobody had evidence. And yet they boycotted his concerts. They broke the law. Me Too broke the law. And Surviving R. Kelly broke the law. That was fraud. Everybody I looked at in that show was fraudulent. Sparkle was married to Earl from Public Announcement. She was going to work on an album. She left her husband for Robert. When I worked for him, I saw naked pictures of Sparkle in his dining room drawer. She came by the house one day with another female. Drea wasn't there, and she had on a see-through skirt with black panties, and they went up to the master bedroom. Sparkle was sexually involved with Robert. So everywhere you look, the information is compromised. People are compromised, and I can't find a real victim thus far in what I've heard in these court proceedings. And that is a affront to our judicial system, and it is a threat to all men out here. You have sons, brothers, uncles, fathers who can be accused of anything at any time, and the Me Too movement will back them up with no evidence. That needs to be investigated. I do want women to be heard. I do want women to be protected, but you want the law to be followed. You can't accuse someone of breaking the law as you break the law.
Let's talk about the herpes and him knowing that he's had herpes since 2007.
He does
And
not have herpes. That is in the testimony as well. Everybody's going to have to get the transcripts. I have
yeah, no,
people
I'm going to
inside the
review them.
courtron
Yeah, I'm going to
Yeah,
review them.
but
We're only getting
let me
bits
give
and
you
pieces right now. So,
right.
we have to go with what we
Yeah,
have to go with. And so these girls have testified or have told the public that they have contracted herpes from R. Kelly. And so, being that you've read the transcripts, what was said?
now I'm talking to people who are actually in the courtroom taking notes.
Okay.
What was said, the doctor did not physically see Robert. He talked to him on the phone. He sent him a culture. And through the culture, the test came back negative. The doctor prescribed medication just in case. He never took blood work, a viable test to prove conclusively one way or the other. So based on medical science, Robert does not have herpes. The doctor himself never ran a proper test. He took one culture and the culture came back negative. After not even seeing Robert face to face, the doctor said, I think he has herpes. That's not a credible medical diagnosis.
I mean, not credible, but I mean, it wouldn't be too crazy to believe that maybe, I mean, being that he is
That's
living a
not how you
very,
diagnose somebody.
but I
That's like
know,
somebody looks at you and says, I think you have cancer. Let's do chemotherapy. No,
right,
you run test after test after test.
right. You run a
That's not
few.
something we don't diagnose that by sight or
So
over the
so
phone.
what about the women that he's been sexually involved with who have came on record and claimed that they all have herpes and they've all been with him
They never, the
sexually?
only person we heard of was Faith Rogers until recently. Now, all of a sudden, everybody has herpes, and all of them are sexually active with many men. So you cannot prove you got it from him. These were not virgins. Not one person was a virgin that is claiming to have had herpes. And all of these women are having sex with multiple men. So we don't know where you contracted herpes, and it has not been scientifically proven that Robert has herpes. So that's inconclusive in a court of law.
Okay, let's talk about the feces because Geronda has spoke about the feces. So has Dominique. I know Dominique Gardner is not a part of the case, as well as Azriel have all spoken about having to being forced by R. Kelly to eat their feces as a punishment.
I can't speak to that. I've never seen it, and I haven't seen evidence to support what they're saying. So it's a gossip and rumor and innuendo. It cannot be substantiated in a court of law. Now, she said he made her take a video of it. Where's the video? And he's not on trial for being disgusting. He's on trial for the Mann Act, transporting a minor across state line, allegedly, and coercion of a minor. He's not on trial for being having weird sexual practices.
Mm. Okay.
And at any point, they could have gone home. So if it were that bad, that should have been the time that you left. That wasn't a deal breaker for her. If it wasn't a problem enough for you to go home, I have a problem with your testimony. You can't tell me something is disgusting and you stay 5 years because you want a paycheck, because you want to live a lifestyle. It just doesn't add up for me.
Do you feel that men in power can abuse their power?
Yes, and I feel young women with their sexuality can abuse that. People use people. People take advantage of, these women seduced him. You don't think a young girl knows that she's hot and sexy and older men are insecure and she can lure them?
Of
When
course.
she went to that concert, she went there to seduce him. There's no question about that. She showed her ass to him in the concert. She twerked on a speaker. She went to his hotel, not to audition. She sent a tweet out over social media to get his attention. I got some black panties at the concert last night. That's not someone who's a victim. That's someone who's a predator that's looking for prey, that's looking for someone that they can take advantage of. This was extortion, entrapment, and this was coercion on their part. I don't see the victim here. I just
So
can't.
it's safe to say that you are basically you believe R. Kelly and you
It's
don't.
not that I believe him. I follow the law. The law says you are to be presumed innocent until
Right.
proven guilty beyond reasonable doubt. I don't have to believe him. The law believes him. I don't have to protect him. The law protects him. That's why we have laws. The 14th Amendment says equal protection under the law. He is to be presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond reasonable doubt. Follow the law and stand on law. You don't get to bring gossip, innuendo, rumor, and all of that into the courtroom.
And
If this man violated a law in any way, shape, or form, it will be uncovered during this process. Thus far, it has not. Thus far, we see liar after liar after liar, and that's in the court transcripts. The media is not reporting that because they feel at some point the government is going to turn this around. From the people that I have in there taking notes, and I don't have them in there, they're just in there, and they're reporting back to me, Robert is winning this, and he's winning by a landslide. It's not even close. Every witness that the government has put on the stand has been dismantled, has been discredited, does not have evidence to support what they're saying, and have been proven liars. From the doctor to Anthony Navarro to Demetrius to Geronda to Azriel. So, Robert is in a good spot right now. But at the end of the day, I want the law to be adhered to. And if something is found, then we'll deal with it at that time. But you're innocent until proven guilty. That is the law in all 50 states.
And I mean, you do have a fantastic point that you made about innocent until proven guilty. And of course, gossip and rumors have no place in a courtroom. However, we do know that system is flawed because there are plenty of Black men who are in jail who have been presumed guilty, although they've been innocent of such things. And so it's kind of it's sort of kind of hypocritical to say now. However, facts are facts and evidence is evidence. And if, the evidence speaks for itself, DNA, whatever they've collected, then I mean, I'm extremely happy that he is getting a fair trial. However, it seems like a pattern because I feel that we wouldn't be here if Rob used some type of discernment to figure out who was of age or underage. I mean, it's not hard to pull a birth certificate and things like that and figure these things out. And I just feel like history just keeps repeating itself. And
that's why he's in this big don't think he's not thinking about that while he's in that jail cell.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody is suffering the consequence of this more than him. He has lost his career. He has lost everything. So his poor judgment, reckless sexual behavior, he has to confront all of that. And I've written him and told him, this is your Gethsemane, and you've got to look at your behavior that brought you here, the choices that he has made. You're choosing these people, regardless of what the reason. You're choosing them. And what I said to him specifically is, you allowed people in your life that had nothing to offer you, and you lost everything because of it. So they all came up, and he lost everything. It is what it is.
Yeah. And I mean, it's just, it's like there comes a time where you kind of have to stop saying, she's a liar, she's a liar, she's a liar. And all of them have been consistent with his sexual whatever fetishes or whatever he likes, the type of women he likes, consistently. And that's I that's what I can't put my finger on. It's like, you've been here, you've been on trial before, you know how it is. Did you think that you were invincible? You cannot beat the feds once and not think that they're not gonna come back again. And they were just waiting on him to slip. And this is a big slip when you got your brother, you got your family, you got old co-workers. Now, let's talk about Don Russell here for a second, because Don Russell has told me personally that he believes in Rob, and everybody, pretty much everything that you're saying about people being discredited, and he has the keys to prove that they're liars. Now, you sent me some pictures. I'm talking about tapes. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry. Tapes of, just like a U-Haul filled with like files, tapes. And apparently these were Rob's, I guess, masters stolen. Now, I was told by Don Russell that he had permission to protect those masters, and that, I guess some higher ups or some people that are in his team have, I guess, personally stolen and are collecting Rob's royalties. Do you know anything about this?
I was told Rob knew nothing about him removing them, and did not have verbal or written permission to remove them or transport them across state line. I have documentation, and all of this was sent to Robert and his legal team, that people had contacted Don. No, Don reached out to people to try to sell music. They asked to be put in touch with an intellectual attorney of Rob's, because they need to know ownership and who has the copyright to it. Don refused to do that. They were willing to put up $5 million. Don didn't want them to speak to anyone but him. And so the people pulled out because he sent them those pictures. masters of R. Kelly's music in the back of a U-Haul, and that just seemed fraudulent to them. These some people sent him documentation of corruption within RSK. I sent you a few pages of that where
Mm-hmm.
you see contracts from the buffet tour where it shows that Robert was bringing in $500,000. Well, he was given that as a deposit. He post 210,000 per show. The contract was for 40 shows, so Rob would have made 8.4 million just on the buffet tour alone, and that's not even including things like that.
You're breaking up. You're breaking up. So I guess
His career has generated probably no less than 10 million and probably more like 25 million a year over a 30-year career. He should have been the first billionaire in the music industry, and yet today he doesn't own a single piece of property. He has no assets, no art, nothing that you can point to. Investments in real estate, investments in restaurants, nothing. He has zero. Where did $1 billion in assets go? You have to look at, and this is what he had people looking at before all of these allegations came down. You have managers, you have accountants, you have lawyers. What I was told in all of this communication is, Robert has it and the lawyers have it. The bank general manager was his, because
you said what
they
about the
felt
bank? You
fraud.
said what about the bank general manager? You
The
cut out.
general manager of SunTrust Bank in Atlanta froze his account because of suspicious and what he described as fraudulent behavior, and he refused to do anything with that bank account until he met face to face with Mr. Kelly. That's how alarming things were with his money. And so there's been a lot. Just ask yourself that one question. As many hits as he's had, as many hits as he's written for other people, he should be a billionaire. Where's his money? He doesn't own anything.
Well, that's funny because that's Don Russell's side of the story that everybody else is taking from him. And people have been, I guess, illegally pulling royalties and collecting his royalty checks and having access to his accounts. But it just seems like this is like, it's just an endless web of lies, deceit, sex. I mean, it's never ending. Everybody's pointing at everybody else. Nobody knows anything. And yet we have a man who has made a shitload of
Right,
money,
yeah.
who's made bad fucking decisions by allowing people to have access to
Yeah.
things that they shouldn't have had access to in a situation, because this is what Don Russell said verbatim. The reason Rob is in jail is because his staff apparently somehow conspired against him to ask the girls to lie so that they could cover up Rob getting ready to file a $100 million+ lawsuit against the label and his staff for stealing his royalties. That's quote
That
what he said.
quote. And that's, I would say, based on, I just sent you a few pages, but based on what I have looked at and I have reviewed and I have turned over to the lawyers, that statement is not off. That statement is not off. And do I believe there was an enterprise? Absolutely. But I believe it was managers, lawyers, people around him. You have to realize Rob is maniacal when he works. He focuses on music to the exclusion of everything else.
Yeah.
And people knew that. They knew all they have to do is, get him in his creative zone, which he wakes in and sleeps in. And Robert was not a boss. Keep in mind, he was an employee. He was an employee of the record label. So he didn't make decisions. His team made the decisions. They would give Rob a weekly allowance. Rob didn't control the money. His manager, his accountant, his lawyer controlled the money. And because of his compromised learning, they would come by and have meetings and show him things, but he didn't understand what he was saying. So, was he easy to con? Yes, because all you show somebody a spreadsheet, they don't know what they're reading, and you tell them this is how much money you have, this is what we're putting it on, this is what we're using it for. He doesn't know. He's in the studio creating music, and they're giving him whatever they're giving him a week, 50,000, whatever. I know that he would have wads and wads of $100 bills, plus all the money he was collecting on different tours and doing those meet and greets and things like that. The money was just flowing endlessly and effortlessly. So he had no way to keep up with that and write the hits that he did. So he trusted other people to do that, and everybody got greedy and had their hand in the cookie jar. So did people bring girls around? If you look at every female, someone brought them in. They had the fake ID, and all of them went to Susan Loggins. That's not a coincidence. And the payoff, Demetrius said, they split the money and they cut me out. It's not a secret it was going on. Robert just got wind of it in 2016 when the bank president or general manager said, I need to speak with Mr. Kelly. There's too much going on. That's when all shit hit the fan. And so that's when the process began. Were they bringing females in? Of course. Stop and think about it. Here's someone that already has something on the books. You bring a female in. She has fake ID. He's forced him to cut a check. And now you split the check 3-4 ways. It's easy money. Easy money. Of course he wants to keep it out of the press.
So what about all these $250,000 settlements? Like, that was the number.
Yeah. Because if you who brought the females in? You have a party, this one gets in, this one gets in. You meet this one on the tour. Somebody gives this one a number. They bring them around. Did you check ID? Yeah. I heard from everybody around him that they checked ID. Bruce told me that there were files and files of copies of people's ID and confidentiality statements that they signed. So there was a checks and balance. But if the common denominator was people felt Rob didn't pay them enough, and they felt that he didn't treat them well. If you listen to these employees, all of them say that. So they felt, I'm going to get money one way or the other. You bring a female in, she has a fake ID, he has sex. Now, months later, oops, she's underage. We want to keep this out of the press. Of course he wants to keep it out of the press because he's already got those previous things, and this will bury him. So he'll cut a $250,000 check to save losing millions in terms of music that he can do. It's just the cost of doing business. And every rich, successful, powerful man pays people off and in confidentiality statements and in stuff like this all the time because it's cheaper to pay it off than it is to fight it.
But it's interesting that Don Russell kind of knew all this, and yet he's floating around having GoFundMe fundraisers as well as trying to sell off, and I gotta say allegedly, Rob's masters under the table.
Well, he had some music on hard drives that he had. The masters, I think he couldn't do anything with because I believe those are still owned by Sony. Anything that's in master format is owned by the record label, but there were hard drives that he claims were stolen from his vehicle, and all of a sudden that's missing. But we're hearing all this unreleased music all over the internet. So all of it's going to be looked into, all of it's going to be investigated, and people will be dealt with.
Okay. So you do feel like this is a cover-up to keep them from being possibly charged for money laundering and stealing Rob's
I
money.
believe there's so much in this gumbo of chaos. It boggles the mind. Everywhere I look, I see theft, I see corruption, I see con. I mean, there isn't a spot every I'm looking everywhere and I'm like, okay, this person is a con, this person is a liar, this person is a thief. Like, where are the honest people? Robert did not vet people, and I can't tell you how many times I've written him and said that you did not vet people. And what should have happened is he should have had a human resources director in place that hired people, that looked into people's background. He didn't do that, and it
Yeah.
started with Barry Hankerson. But on the surface, Barry Hankerson looked legit. He was managing Gladys Knight, married to her, managing the Winans. But he's been sued by so many people for misappropriation of money. How is it that he owns all of Aaliyah's music
Yeah.
and her estate, which is her mother and brother, don't own anything? Ask yourself that question. That tells you who the man is. Then we go to Daryl McDavid. He was a banker who got a job with Rob as an accountant. When I was hired, he did not have me fill out a W 2 form. Daryl had no information on me. So when it came for the 2008 trial, I wasn't worried about being subpoenaed because I knew the only person that knew how to reach me was Rob. He didn't have employee files, which says you're not filing the proper paperwork with the government. Yet he owns a upscale Mexican restaurant in the heart of downtown Chicago. He drives a Bentley, and he has a 30-unit condominium upscale in the northern suburbs of Chicago. He has a tour bus that is more luxurious than Rob's. How is it that your accountant is living better than you? Daryl McDavid has a ton of assets. Rob has none. Does that make sense? No.
It doesn't make sense at all. And it sounds like, Rob, I just hope that if he does, say for instance, wins, and without a doubt, he's able to prove and discredit everybody, it's time to really put some shit on the table. He's known for keeping his mouth shut. He's known for not, speaking up. And then when he did speak up, he looked like a fool because he had never really spoken before. To that
Yeah.
level, with Gail. And so, so much stuff is coming out. So much stuff was painted just so eloquently because, because they knew his weakness. And, he has to take some responsibility for that, because he allowed himself to be played. For him not educating himself on the various aspects of business because all he wanted to do was make music, you had to know that you were going to be surrounded by some people who were not going to have your best interest at heart simply because of the level of money you were bringing in. And he was a creature of habit. Now, that's something that I
Yeah.
did hear. It was
Yeah.
easy to predict where he was going, what he was doing, and how he was doing it. So while they, could have been out doing God knows whatever, he wouldn't have known.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Well, it absolutely is his responsibility because he's the one that's paying the price. Robert, I'm certain, felt very insecure with his learning disability, and I think that's why he channeled all of his energy into music. I believe maybe as a child, his teachers told him he was stupid, he was dumb, because to me, with all that money, you should have had a tutor. You should have had somebody educating
I
you.
mean, hell,
The fact that
even the guy from Mission Impossible, what's his name? I can't think of his name. Could
I
have
don't
taught
know.
him. He has dyslexia, and couldn't
Yeah.
really
But
read,
I
but taught
think
himself how to
Robert
read.
was, yeah, I think Robert was very insecure about that. Didn't want, there's shame attached to that. And I think what he did was channel all of his energy into music, and people started telling him he's a genius, which he is. And he felt this is enough to carry me. And unfortunately, he wasn't as street savvy and having discernment when it came to picking people, or just he didn't know to look into people's backgrounds. You only know what you know. He did not graduate from Kenwood. I think as far as he went was sophomore year maybe, and he would just go back and work with Lena McLin and work on his music because that was his passion. That's what he loved. So it's, as much as I want to say what he should have and could have done, I recognize that based on the environment that he was born into and he was raised into, he did the best that he could, and he's dealing with the consequences of all of his choices. And I support him. I love him unconditionally, and I'm doing everything I can to help him.
Okay. Has he written you back?
He has, yeah.
Okay.
And he
Okay.
speaks to me through the lawyers and through Keith.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Is there
Yeah.
anything else you want to add before we close it up? I mean, I'm sure I'll have you back here in a couple weeks to kind of update us on your thoughts, because you are following this very closely, and I'm not able to get transcripts yet. But I will try to make some calls to see if I can get a hold of those, so that I can be more non-biased in my reporting, because I mean, those girls
And
have done an excellent job in painting, him as the monster when they intentionally lied about their age to have access. And so, I mean, I was young once. I know how it is, So, but I just feel
But
like,
they do a disservice to real victims. You have real women that are going through real situations. And for all of this time and energy and money to go towards this nonsense, that's what aggravates me more than anything. And it opens the door for more. Now every man is at risk. Every celebrity is at risk. Anybody can come forward with a story. They're going to be believed. Me Too is going to back them up and call them a victim. They'll destroy you in the court of public opinion, and you have to dig your way through that in the legal system after they've destroyed you financially. This is we have sons, we have brothers, we have fathers.
Mhm.
This is not the way you level the playing field. I believe women were heading towards a good place with Michelle Obama in the White House, with all of these great feminine strides that we were making. To me, this sets the whole thing back, because when you paint gold diggers and opportunists and social climbers and groupies as victims that have no evidence, you do a disservice to the real females that are
And that's true.
true victims.
And that's true. You know what? And I was saying to myself, I said, I don't even know how Azrael made it on the stand. How? There's so much contradictory evidence out there. It was going to happen. It was going to be inevitable. They were going to destroy her with her own, well, you
Yeah.
said this, you said this. What is truthful? Because we don't know. But what I do know
Yeah.
is when she came out and finally showed her face and showed her body and showed off them titties and was in the condo living the life when he
Yeah.
got locked up. I just
Yeah,
feel
she
that,
showed who she truly is.
yeah, I was like, oh, okay, this what we doing? Oh,
Right.
okay. I mean,
And showing her butt
and I knew, I said, when she got to go back to work because that money ain't coming in, she going to go home. She going to go home where it's comfortable. Now, I did get some information, and she's working out in Dubai occasionally to try not to bring attention to her trying to establish a lifestyle that she's trying to get using her body. And one of her friends who went out there with her kind of put her on blast, and I'll be talking to him soon about, her ways. And so
AdamandEve.com. I'm talking toys, bondage, lingerie, and so much more. Plus, they have 24/7 customer service, so you can order at 3 a.m. if you ain't coming, if you get me, okay? And if something isn't working out, you can send it back within 90 days, no hassle. And if that's not enough, you can also take pleasure in knowing that 20% of their profits goes to help fight the spread of HIV around the world. So go on ahead and log on to AdamandEve.com. Use the code TASHA K for 50% off one item plus free shipping in the U.S. and Canada. Some exclusions apply now, but hurry up and visit adamandeve.com so they can make you come.
See, I enjoy oral sex, but to be honest, some of my experiences have been not pleasing due to lack of proper vaginal hygiene. I went down on this chick once, and the yoni was so good and fresh. It took me on like a whole nother level of just pleasure. So at that moment, I had to stop and ask, what are you using? And she told me, Embrace Pangea Feminine Wash.
We all know that a fresh yoni brings on a whole new level of confidence, so visit embracepangea.com, and of course, I got my winos covered for a discount, so use the coupon code TashaK for 10% off your first order.
And thank you for your willingness to hear another side of the issue.
Oh, of course. Yeah, of course. And I mean,
and present something. You know, you have a large platform, and I know that you've been really harsh on Robert, but I think it's very, it shows growth that you're willing to at least hear what others have to say on this subject. Because I've heard your commentary, and I'm very clear on your viewpoint.
yeah.
But it is a responsibility of a journalist to present an unbiased view and let everybody present their information and try to be as fair as possible, but most importantly, follow the law. So I thank you for having me on, and I thank you for listening to me praise him. And I know that probably didn't sit well with
No, I mean, I'm not. Can you hear me? If I was bothered by it, I wouldn't have asked you to come on the platform.
Yes.
I'm not so close-minded to where I cannot respect someone else's point of view. Now, like I said, I do feel, and I stand in that a lot of this is on him, because you have to be able to have some type of discernment to tell who's young and who's not young. And when women aren't fully developed mentally, guess what? They lie. They do whatever they got to do because they think that this is what life is about. You know what I'm saying? And so I do feel like, he is in this situation because of him. And the only person that's going to be able to get him out is him. Now, if, like I said, he does get off, he will be getting a full apology from me on this platform. However, I will be very stern about his choices, and he has to seek some type of sexual addiction counseling, because if not, he's going to be right back, because everybody knows he's vulnerable.
And let me say this, he doesn't I don't see where he's turned anyone away. I don't see where he just focuses on one age group. I think he has sex with women in their 50s, their 40s, their 30s. It's just the media focuses on the ones that appear to bring the salacious news. But I haven't seen where Robert discriminates. And that is being, having a sexual addiction. And he knows what he has to deal with. And he's the one that has suffered the consequences of this.
So we'll wrap it up. But I really do appreciate you coming on and sharing your side and what you know to be facts. And I definitely will be having you back here on the platform in a couple weeks when this trial is over.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.